partnership with Flipkart Ads. The session is about unlocking the power of commerce ads, transforming brand consumer connections. And to present this session, I would like to invite on stage Sudarshan Sharma, Senior Director, Monetization, Flipkart. Let's give him a huge round of applause. Well, I'm sure this is going to be a very insightful session on the transformative role of e-commerce in advertising through contextualization and innovation. Over to you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me in the back? Okay, I just realized I really need a new photograph. So anyway, perfect. Hey, so you know what? We've got 20 minutes, and what I'm trying to do is probably finish it a little before so we can take a couple of questions. In case I don't, which tends to be the problem with a lot of presentations that I give, we have the Flipkart team in the back. Can you all hands up? Oh, there you go. Yeah, right at the back. So any follow-up questions that you may have, we'll look forward to those questions coming to us during the breaks. Right, perfect. Cool. So just, before we get into this, a quick one. How many people here, and a show of hands, are practitioners in the marketing domain? Like, you make decisions, you make plans, you decide where money should be deployed. Excellent. And how many are mid-management coveting for that C-level title? How many people here? Okay. And how many from agencies? Perfect. Okay. So I don't know what the rest of the people are doing, but okay, you clearly don't fall into that bucket, but perfect. So hey, you know what, before we get there, right, a couple of things really resonated with me from the last, speakers. I'm sure my team is judging me thinking these are cheat notes, they're not. The first thing is adapt or lose market share, right? It's been something that's been true for decades. You don't need AI, you need just I to understand that this is critical, right? Number one. Number two, Byron Sharp, right? Many of you all have read that, I'm sure. It's part of the uniform for marketeers. Turn it on its head, right? Because things are changing very fast. We've seen the last 2 or 3 sessions that have highlighted that, right? Last but not least, and I'm going to put this down, is the shared accountability with which all organizations need to work, right? And we've been doing some pretty disruptive work in the field of media. Sorry, we're not as sexy as the AI conversations we just had before this, but for Flipkart, what we've been trying to really unlock over the last year and a half to 2 years is relationships with media agencies, relationships with boutique agencies. We've even started talking about creative, right? And what we've noticed is a lot of this actually has to do with a top-down push from the C-level and people who report into that C-suite to be flexible enough to try new things, right? One last thing, so when I spent around 4 years at Facebook, and we had a saying in Facebook which is plastered on the walls, right? I'm sure many of you have been to their offices. What would you do if you were not afraid, right? I think that's something that's a guiding principle for me most of the time. Right, unless it's my mom calling asking me what's going on, right? But I think it's very important that we use that philosophy to make decisions not only about how AI is going to play a role, but how do I kind of look at differentiated platforms for my advertising? How do I look at differentiated platforms for my for reaching out to my customers, right? Perfect. So I don't think there's a clicker, so I think you guys can. Oh, it's here. Oh, thank you. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So quick one. Yeah. Perfect. So at the end of the session, right, I want to leave everybody here with 3 broad things, right? What is the Indian e-retail market, right? When you look at any sort of journal that talks about media, I think retail media is something that's slowly coming up as one of those things that's just not going away from that stack rank, right? You of course I've got friends from Google in the audience, so I'm going to just say you see Google, you see Meta, you see us, you see Amazon, you see Big Basket. It's becoming kind of a part of the uniform from the 3rd serial number onwards, right? You will see somebody who's a retail company, and we'll dive into why that is, right? Second bit is, what is Flipkart doing here, right, in this space, right? And last but not least, how can you as a brand benefit from these associations? So let's quickly jump into it. So believe it or not, India already has the 3rd largest shopper base when it comes to online shopping, right? I'm sure everybody in this room, did anybody buy anything in the last 3 or 4 days online? Show of hands. right? There you go. Hopefully it was on Flipkart, right? But I think the main thing here is, if you look at the fundamentals that have driven this growth, right? The beauty is that during the pandemic, we all saw an acceleration of business, particularly on online e-tail, right? Guess what? The people who came for the first time actually have stayed back. Right, many of the brands we speak to, when they saw that peak happening, they said, hey, you know what, this is something that will go away the moment things actually start opening up in the physical realm. Yes, things have opened up, their business is going up as well, but we've seen those users come and stick, right? And as a result of which, not only have our NCs or new customers gone up, stickiness has gone up, and hence to keep that stickiness and to capitalize on that stickiness, we've built a whole bunch of experiences on the app, right? And we'll get into that, right? Now, if you look at, what's all the fuss about, why is India got so much, promise and growth that's going to come up? Sorry, it's a bit low here, so I'm just going to read it out. But when you look at penetration in India of commerce, e-commerce transactions to offline, we're just 4.5% in 21, and we expect to be at around 9 to 10% by 2027, right? This is part of a study that we do every year with Bain. Just look at China, right? We all love comparing ourselves with China. 26% already in 2021, 28 to 30% in 22, and I believe that right now they're probably north of 35%. Right? So this is huge, right? Trillions and trillions of dollars are being pumped by people like you and me in China, right? In just buying things. And guess what? Their physical retail is thriving, and so is online retail. So it doesn't have to be one at the expense of the other. The previous speaker said, listen, don't worry, AI is not going to take your jobs away. I just think we need to reskill, right? I have the most to worry about because I'm a sales guy, right? So I need to figure out how AI is going to take care of that, right? So the numbers absolutely make sense, but just look at the delta, right? 700 million plus internet users. By the way, this number is 700 million to a trillion, depending on which report you read. We've obviously kind of watered it down basis the data we have. We only have a 190 million approximate number of people actually shopping online. The others are actually probably doing WhatsApp, a little bit of social media, video, OTT, so on and so forth. All right? So definitely blue sky. We have a lot to do, right? And hopefully Flipkart will be part of that. Right? Excellent. Now that we looked at how the ecosystem is growing, right? Commerce media, quick show of hands, how many of you all actually invest in what is called commerce advertising, retail media? Right, clearly this is for the team, we have a lot of work to do, so yeah, right? But it's very interesting, right? So if you look at the total digital ADEX as a percentage, right, of total ADEX, 46.6% of total digital ad spends, in 2023 was actually retail media, right? And we'll get into what that is. I have some examples. In the US, it was 14.6. It's been growing 16% in China, 22% in the US. We're growing almost 40 to 50% in India, right? And if you actually look at the numbers, it's fairly mind-boggling, right? China's at a 72 billion, right? India total digital ADEX, according to Flipkart estimates, is around 50 to 55 billion, right? Interestingly, we as a ecosystem did $1 to $1.2 billion of media last year, right? So still, if you actually look at it, I remember, we used to do a lot of competition benchmarking in my previous companies. I don't think Amazon and Flipkart or Big Basket or anybody even featured in that list that we would look at as a bucket to, where we could go and get money out from to enhance our share of wallet, right? But if it's already done 1.2 billion, we're looking at a 1.8 kind of a number this year, right? And we are growing 45 to 50%, right? And the best part is there are audiences on these platforms, right? Flipkart is 200 million monthly active, 450 million who ever signed up, right? We know exactly how they're transacting, what they're doing, how much time they're spending. Did they pay by credit card, cash on delivery, right? Male, female, through inferred means on the basis of what they order. Sorry, it's a little cliche, but I think AI should take care of that, right? But the point is there is a huge amount of audiences there, and there's a huge amount of intelligence, right? And the question is, even if I look at doing awareness, Flipkart and awareness never really went together. We have a lot of brands that do a ton of work with us, but they're looking for that all-important ROAS, right? I think the time has now come to a point where, in the previous slide, you looked at a 700 million number of internet users, for me as a brand to do an awareness campaign that taps into 400, 500, 600 million people who can't actually transact or result in a sale, I think is basically losing the battle a little bit. Focus on a targeted awareness, right? That's what we've been working with a lot of customers on, right? Perfect. So moving on. Now, very interesting, right? 2011, I was part of the first team that joined Google, and you know, when Google India said, listen, we want to be more than just a back office, we want to be a team that actually changes the landscape of advertising. We did to some extent. Prateek's in the audience here. I'm just calling him out. Yeah, we were colleagues there. What is very interesting is the first meetings that we had to go to a Unilever. We had to go to a L'Oreal and tell them, hey, you know what? If you search for something, this is how a paid search ad looks, right? When it came to even Flipkart, for that matter, we had to tell people that, hey, you know what? आप इतने पैसे डालेंगे तो आपका ad ऐसा दिखेगा, right? The interesting bit now is, if you look at the audience, 40% of shoppers are first-time e-retail shoppers now in the country. 3 out of 5 of these new people are actually Gen Z. The beauty about Gen Z, right, is effectively they have started consuming content on a mobile device. So there is no learning curve with regard to just downloading an app and using it, right? And just as fast as they expect us as brands to communicate with them, right? We need to make sure that we are ready there with that content, with that offering, and what they're actually looking at, right? Another very interesting piece. E-commerce is a metro phenomenon. I don't think I can reach people in Bhatinda or you know, rural areas outside of Jabalpur, etc. No, 1 in 3 new shoppers who are coming in are from tier 3. I'm not even talking about tier 2. Right? Metros are nailed, those are happening, that's constantly growing, awesome. Obviously growing at a lower rate than the overall piece, but there is a lot happening even in tier 3 towns, right? Just to give you a quick mention of what Flipkart is doing, we deliver to almost 99.6% of PIN codes in the country, right? And what I'm told is with India Post shutting down post offices because no one's really sending post anymore, we've outstripped their reach, right? So the point is, there is demand. Right? It's just the way people order, the ticket sizes, etc. That obviously varies a bit, right? I think the rest is obviously, right, BAU, right? So there's surge in time spent online. A lot of people are browsing, right? A very interesting piece of data is we get 3 times the amount of traffic on our mobile category on Flipkart, right, than the number of mobiles sold, both online and offline. Right? So what's also happening is when you look at, when you're a marketer and you're looking at putting up something on Flipkart, right, and selling on Flipkart, do understand that to some extent there is an impact on offline as well. Because people are, by the way, I'm looking to buy a new iPhone, and finally now I've decided to wait for the 15. Until news came out, it's going to be $200 more, so we'll see. But I have gone and seen that iPhone 14 red like 5 times, but I know I'm going to buy it in the next couple of months. Right? So what that means is it's not only just to go there, add to cart or buy now, it's also research. Right? It's also going back again and again to reinforce the belief that you're making the right decision. Right? Or walk into a shop and say, you know what, I've done all the research here on a Flipkart, right? I need to buy the iPhone 14, red, give it to me. What's the best deal? This is what it is online, negotiate, buy, and go. Right? So we're actually enabling all of that as well. Right? Now, when it comes to Flipkart particularly, right, we've done a lot, right? I think we need to talk about this a little more. That's feedback that we've been getting as well. But if you look at it across 4 pillars, right, broadly, acquisition, engagement, innovation, and ads. Everybody knows that we have something called Shopsy, right? It's what we call a hyper-value platform where you buy things which are of very, very low average sale price, right? We've done a lot on the fintech side. Right? So if you look at Flipkart, what we want to really do is we want to go end-to-end in terms of anything that you might want as a user. As you know, we have ClearTrip, we have Shopsy, we have Flipkart, we have Myntra. Right? PhonePe was with us. It's now obviously taken over by Walmart entirely. But how do I enable people to buy and transact? A lot of fintech initiatives that we do obviously enable that. Right? We're doing a ton of things for the next 200 million shoppers online, right? I'll get into that in a bit. When it comes to engagement, you come to Flipkart, how do I keep you there? Mall mode, you must try it. Gives you a very, very uncluttered, branded experience, right? You don't get white label products or anything. You get brands. You get a very different interface, something that's very immersive, something that's very clean, and it helps you make decisions really quickly. We keep tweaking our app experience, obviously. I think on the innovation side, bunch of things that we've done, which is absolutely path-breaking, right? AR, VR for try-ons, right? You guys really should try it. Right? I know some of you probably don't use Flipkart, but there have been a ton of people who actually do virtual try-ons and buy, right? And that's actually the real awesome use case of AR, VR. I think AR, VR were the buzzwords earlier, but AI is now kind of taken over that. But the point is, what are we doing for business, right? And we're actually helping brands do this. We also launched an NFT marketplace, video commerce, another very interesting bit, extremely successful in China from an ROI perspective. India, we managed to get the users, right? But I still think that conversions can be better, so we're working on how we can build that as well, right? Coming to ads, right, which is where I work, and all the flipsters sitting in the back. Interesting data point, 30 to 33% of all searches that happen online have moved to commerce marketplaces, right? They were the preserve of search engines earlier. They've all moved to commerce marketplaces now because people know that if I have to search for a mobile phone, I have to search for apparel, there are specialists in these verticals who I would rather search on rather than get cluttered results, right? And search forms that epitome. So we have a bunch of ad products around that, right? We've also managed to actually port our audience learning and intelligence outside of Flipkart. So we've got tie-ups with a Criteo and a Meta, right, where you already run campaigns with them. You can actually use that 200 million or a subset of that in any way you want to slice and dice the data, right, and use that. And just serve ads on Instagram, Facebook, Audience Network, or your favorite OTTs through Criteo. Right? So we're giving you that opportunity to utilize not only those audiences on the Flipkart platform, but off as well. Going back to the point where I said it's got to be targeted awareness, targeted consideration, and building targeted purchase intent, right? Which is your typical funnel. Right? I'll just skip this in interest of time. That counter is freaking me out, so I'm just, yeah. Perfect. We'll quickly get into what, as I mentioned, what else we're doing. So when it comes to looking future forward, right, AI obviously powers everything that we do as well in the back end, and we'll keep doing that. I mean, it's very important. I think one speaker mentioned that it's been 10 years since everyone here has been using AI, you just don't know it. Machine learning and AI has been around for the last decade almost, right? It's just been getting better and better, which is why your browsing experience online is always a much more, how shall I put it, personalized approach, right? You open any app and there is stuff there that you want to read, and that's the stickiness piece. What we're really doing is, when it comes to video commerce, right, we have, I think in the country, been one of the first to actually get people to come and shop using video as that critical entry point, right? You consume ads, you consume content, you do all of that, but I think the main thing here is that we need to make sure that video is something that's extremely immersive. And think of this, right? I think video commerce helps you collapse the funnel. The best way you build top funnel is through video, right? The best way you keep people engaged is through video. What we've tried to do is we've tried to keep them engaged, we've tried to build that awareness, and we've tried to get them to transact all with it one, right? And I think that's brilliant, and it's worked very well in certain categories. Certain categories, we have some way to go, right? AR, VR, I think this example, very interesting. We recently moved houses in Bangalore, right? And we actually saw that if I wanted to see how a particular tabletop item looked on the table, there was enough and more available for me online across various different marketplaces to actually come and see how that looked, right? And that actually sealed it for us. Right? Sitting at home, I don't have to go there. I can just do this, and I can do it on my table in my living room environment. Right? That's the real power of what this unleashes. Right? I think a lot of stuff around Web 2, right? We've all cracked Web 2. Web 3 is where I think the entire blockchain piece comes in. Right? And I think when it comes particularly to NFTs that ride the blockchain layer, we've done a lot on this. It's not something we obviously continue to flog, but it's something that we did because we wanted to obviously test and see whether this will resonate with Gen Z coming in and a lot of them actually jumping onto this bandwagon. How exactly can we leverage this on the platform? Right? So that's something that we really wanted to bring in as well, right? Now, coming to those aspects I mentioned, right? What is that audience intelligence that we have, right? And if you actually look at what people do on Flipkart, whether it's the category you're browsing, the products you're searching for, the ratings and reviews you leave behind, the affordability angle, right? How are you paying? Are you going in for buy now, pay later, etc., right? Are you young parents? I can actually derive that from the purchases that you make, right? Are you a gadget geek? Are you constantly browsing products that are absolutely new? Are you an innovator, right? Or an early adopter, right? What kind of a household you are and the price preferences. When I mesh all this together, I'm able to do the following, right? As I said, Flipkart has got 4 key pieces that happen on the platform. So you open a Flipkart app, you will see a whole bunch of content. A bunch of content is basically, if you actually look at the flow, you'll find a whole bunch of content there is actually sponsored. That's, by the way, tailored also, right? The point is, there's display, there's video, no-brainers, but it's basically what I do with the search queries that you make and understand what that query actually means and what the intent of the person searching is. I'm able to give you a lot of depth, right? So product contextual ads, product listing ads, right? Sorry, little tactical, but important to understand because a search query is not just a search query independently. We actually dive into what has actually prompted that, and hence, what do I need to serve you, right? Now, the interesting bit I mentioned also is, I think if you look at the overall journey of a person using a mobile phone during the day, right? You spend, and I'm being very, very generous to myself, 5 minutes a day on Flipkart, 25 minutes a day on Instagram, right? 1 hour on YouTube, right? And a lot more time on OTTs, and then you read the news and you spend another 15, 20 minutes on a Times of India and NDTV, etc. If I'm a brand that's selling a mobile phone on Flipkart, right, I possibly have a very, very small fraction of that 5 minutes that you spend on Flipkart for me to showcase my brand. But what I'm also helping you do as a brand, and this is something that's not entirely or hugely penetrated in the market yet. I think we're one of the first people to actually bring this out. We're able to actually take that audience and help you find that audience on the open internet and social media, as I mentioned earlier. And the hope is when I do that, they click, they come back to Flipkart, finish the transaction, you get your ROI. Right? So think of it this way. Other than the Google stack, I have access to everything else, right? And my audience can be found on all of this. Right? And this is done by a very, very robust, mutually beneficial partnership. No, so we run, yeah. So we run, yeah, no, thank you for that. We should make it interactive. But yeah, so we basically run it for you, right? We charge, obviously, an audience or a platform fee on top of that. But the ROIs that we calculate are calculated on the total amount, including the fee. And what we've seen is for the last year, we've been running a whole bunch of pilots on this. Interestingly, some of the sponsors here have tried it as well. And we actually find that the ROI is better even when I include the audience fee because it's all about who the audience is. Right? So we basically run it for you. It'll soon be on self-serve, but for now, yeah. Yeah, perfect. Feel free to ask questions, yeah, happy to. Perfect. So now, how do we solve for partners, right? These are just a couple of cases that we did. Happilo, I'm sure many of you all have obviously sampled and probably enjoyed their products. They're a very close partner with us. But when you look at what they wanted to do, I think it's very, very difficult for a new brand to disrupt the snacking space. Right? And Happilo effectively is somebody who said, listen, you know what? If I do plain Jane advertising, display video, you know, I'm relevant on search, that's okay, but what more can I really do? Right? So what they really did was gamification and AR effectively came into play, right? And believe it or not, people, if I remember this right, I'm sorry, there are no notes here, but I think around 3 to 4 minutes was spent by the average person in actually playing this game. Right? Can you imagine when you do regular advertising or you're trying to reach your audience, somebody spending 3 to 4 minutes on engaging with the brand? This drove, obviously, the entire full funnel piece, right? And we actually saw a record number of sales, right? So going back to what I was saying about even video commerce, right? Gaming can do the same thing, right? Make the experience fun, right? Make the experience relevant, right? But I think it's very important for us to actually understand that there are now solutions that are available where you can collapse the funnel, right, and ensure that people can, go right from awareness to purchase, probably in 1 or 2 sessions. And that'll happen only when you have the relevant audience, right, which we do. The second bit, very interesting. So Puma, obviously, right, interesting how that brand really pivoted, right, going from physical retail to whatever, and then effectively transformed as a D2C. Very important. What they did is they actually asked audiences, what is it that you need? Right? This is a very interesting thing, right? When the whole world's talking about, I know what you need because I have data. Great, we can do that also, right? But at the same time, what is it that you need from us? This is all that we have. And effectively, when they took in that input, right, they were able to actually customize the landing page on the basis of what exactly mattered to you. Right? I thought this was a little disruptive given that everything nowadays is fueled by, I know everything you do, I know who you are, I know how you pay, I know where you live because you have put in your address for delivery. I thought this was really, really nice. And it actually drove a lot of, again, time spent in engaging with the brand. This is also a very, very smart way of telling them rather than just showing, an ad of a sports shoe, right? Saying that, hey, you know what? I exist across sports shoes, sneakers, sandals, floaters. Right? Hey, so you know what? I may be in the market for sports shoes, but it's good to know that they also have floaters, right? And I didn't know that till I actually saw this slide, right, sometime back. So that's the second interesting example that we had. Right now, I think coming to Colgate, again, very, very interesting. What we did is, this is the example of what we did off platform, right? And basically what Colgate said is, you know what, we sell reasonably well on Flipkart. E-commerce is growing exponentially for us. But we also want to understand what we can do with our audiences through Flipkart audience intelligence, right, on Meta, which I anyway run, right? And what they effectively did is they used their audience that is on Flipkart, right? Our intelligence then obviously gets pushed into the Meta ecosystem. And we looked at this and we found whether this works better or does their regular Meta campaign work better. The beauty is Meta is happy because either way, it's on their surface, right? And what we found is that the ROAS that was generated in this was almost 1.5 times better, right? So I think that's the interesting bit here. It's, so my request to all is just look at how relevant the audience is, right? Put the customer at the center and understand that before you actually decide where to deploy monies, right? Now, what are we doing as Flipkart, right, in shaping 2023, etc.? You saw a lot of stuff that we're doing, which is very forward-looking, right? But what we're seeing as trends, and some of this is, fortunately coming true, and in fact is outstripping some of the stuff on the slide. We didn't put it in yet, but 80% of commerce advertising spends are likely to be new, right? So that growth you're looking at coming in from the 1.2 billion, right, to the 1.8 billion, is not only coming due to expansion of existing clients, it's also coming through inorganic growth of getting new people on board, right? The second interesting thing is, as I said, we've been doing a lot of work with agencies, right? And media agencies like Group M, IPG, a majority of the spends that they do, right, offline or on digital, tend to be upper funnel or brand building, right? 30 to 40% of the budgets that we see coming in fact, a little more, are actually coming to us as a commerce marketplace saying, you know what, ROAS or ROI is not going to be the only calculation I'm going to evaluate this on. Yeah, but the point is, I want to actually do brand lifts on this. Right? Now, for Flipkart to do brand lifts through either the off-platform advertising or on our platform, coming in with incremental budgets was a big thing for us. Right? We've obviously recalibrated to that. But the beauty is that we're actually seeing this go up. And the demands coming in are, hey, here's a video asset. Right? Can you run this for us either on platform, or can you run this using your audience on a Meta, on an OTT? Right? We're happy to oblige, right? Obviously. Right? I think so, hence, right? Going back to the entire thing I told you at the beginning, which I took away from the past, previous speakers. Look at it this way. If commerce, advertising, retail media, whatever you want to basically call it, is not part of your media outreach now, right? You need to do it now. Right? There is enough action happening. We know that the headroom is effectively there because we're still at a paltry 5%, right, in India in terms of penetration. We need to make sure that this goes up. Your customers are there, they're actually taking action. I think rather than letting an algorithm tell you that these people are in market or these people are lower funnel, just invest in a platform that actually tells you that people who come here, 200 million, for instance, on Flipkart, are actually buying stuff. They're actually transacting. They're putting money where their mouth is, right? So that's what I had. I think there are bells going off. So any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I think we have a couple of minutes. Or actually 35 seconds, but yeah. Questions? Oh, yeah. There's a mic in there.
Hi,
Hey.
I am Ishita from Boat. So we have been using video commerce quite prominently.
Sure.
But wanted to ask you, how are we attributing video commerce towards sales?
Sure.
Because right now, though we see that there is a search, but how are we attributing video commerce towards the sales?
Sure. So, see, in a few situations that we took up, we had to obviously go back to the brand and ask them what exactly happened post that. It was a rather crude measure that basically said before and after, right? But I think the way video commerce was conceptualized by us was that it needs to result in some sort of selling, going by the China model, where I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right, I don't know if anyone in the team knows the data point better, but I believe around 20 to 25% of what they sell comes from influencers getting on video and saying, hey, you know what, buy it, click here to go to the page and transact. Right? So I think we need to get to that. But I think in India, for some reason, video is still consumed as a one-way thing. But I think the way we should measure it, I'm not saying we have that capability at the moment, is what happens after. Right? And for that, we will at the moment lean on brands to come back to us and tell us what happened. But yeah, but we're building for it.
Got it,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.